welcome to another episode, Better Cocktails at Home. I'm Brian Johnson, and we're not quite yet in the Quarterdeck Club like we usually are. So for June, our videos, I wanted to do a theme of the secrets of the Quarterdeck Club, our home bar, and just kind of talk about what we've built, why we built it, some of the things we've done. And so just kind of give you some insight if you're interested in building home bars and not just making cocktails, because you've got to make a cocktail home somewhere. Usually it's in the kitchen. But if you do have the space or the inclination to make a home bar, hopefully this series will kind of help you with just kind of think through some of the problems, some questions, some things like that you're going to encounter as you build a home bar or set out a little space for your cocktails and spirits and liqueurs, that kind of stuff. So before we start though, I wanted to say, if you see something in our videos that hey, like that's a cool idea, I think that'd be awesome, like let me know, because I think one of the cool things about cocktails and the tiki culture and home bar culture is just the collaboration. So yeah, if you see something, you're like, hey, that's a cool idea, feel free to let me know in the comments. Also, this is your opportunity. If you have any specific questions that you want answered, drop those in the comments. We got 3 more videos and I can answer questions, that sort of thing. So let's get started kind of on the tour, and we're gonna go downstairs and we're gonna get started. So first thing I want to talk about is the transition from a normal kind of standard house to kind of a themed or very specific room slash home bar. So kind of background, our house is built in 1906, so it's very old, and we try to keep as much historical context as we can and really keep you mindful of that when we're doing anything with our home bar or building anything, that kind of thing. So with that in mind, the transition from sort of our standard main living house to our Quarterdeck Club, which houses, of course, our bar and then a home theater, is important to kind of think through. So to start that off, to right at the top of the stairs, where we go to the basement, we have a small bathroom. In this bathroom, we've got a print of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is one of my very favorite novels of all time. And so I wanted to kind of start to introduce some of the theme, and we'll talk more about the theme in a few minutes. But just kind of that's the start of things as people come downstairs. So as you come downstairs, we've got a few of the prints on the wall. These are also kind of to start that process of seeing the theme a little bit. So this one's a German map of kind of Polynesia, Pacific Ocean, Americas. And this one is an old, looks like maybe Dutch sailors. If you actually go back to our very old videos, you'll see that I use this print in the very first intro I ever did. So kind of come down the stairs, and you'll see we've got sort of our kind of standard beige white walls. As you kind of get halfway down the stairs, we start transitioning to a very dark blue paint. And that also kind of helps to cement the transition into the Quarterdeck Club. It's a very dark space. Primarily that is for especially performance during watching movies. You want it very dark. But as you enter down, you land on the stairs, and you kind of your first view of the Quarterdeck Club. Off to your left are some very heavy, dark blue velvet curtains, which hides something. If it's your first visit, you may not know, but I know because I've built it. Then off to your right, you've got a little bit of kind of a steamer type trunk, and again just kind of furthering a little bit of that theme. You've got the actual bar itself, in terms of, you can see the structure of it. You see this nice beautiful window that's hanging in a very specific spot, kind of sort of obscuring a little bit, but you can also see right through it. So you see the bottles, you can see the lighting. To me, it's a really important feature as you kind of enter the Quarterdeck Club. And then as you move into the middle section, you've got our theater seats for when you are watching movies. And then coming towards the rear of the room, we have sort of a little more intimate seating. We've got a fireplace, and we have two super tall tiki, not super tall, they're I think under 4 feet tall, but around 4 feet tall, tikis that are hand carved by a local tiki carver. He goes by Gone Tiki. He is an amazing dude, super talented, and we loved working with him on that. Just all around great guy. So this is kind of a little more intimate seating. Back here we've got 2 more bar stools, and these are for, I'm going to build a table back here, so it's going to be kind of additional seating, little table, that sort of thing. So this space is about 18 by 27 or so, so it's a fairly large room. One of the things you need to be really mindful of, or at least I was when I was kind of conceptualizing this space, is to kind of break it up into small sections. So at the front of the room, we have our kind of screen. I'll go over each little section a little more in detail. But we have the front of the room, we have a screen. The middle section, we have our theater chairs. And then off to the kind of east wall of our house, we have our main bar itself. And then, like I said, in the rear room, we have sort of a little intimate seating area. And then we have a little bit more off table seating and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and give you a peek behind the curtains. And this is literally a peek behind the curtains because we have large curtains here. And I won't spend a lot of time on this because this is a cocktail channel and not a home theater channel. But behind our curtains, we have our theater screen. And so these are obviously a big giant white screen, sort of takes away from like kind of a very themed bar, Quarterdeck Club. But it's an awesome, I love it. We love movies. We love watching movies down here. This is a 125-inch CinemaScope screen built out of spandex for the screen material, and all the speakers are behind it. So it's very compact. It's very sleek, looks really good. It actually looks like a ginormous TV from the 90s. So remember those old rear projection TVs that were kind of like half black, half screen? That's kind of what it looks like, just a giant size. But having the curtains are really, really important to be able to kind of hide this and then keep that bar feel when we're hanging out and not watching a movie. And it just adds the texture of the curtains. It's really hard to see on video because they're so dark, but it just adds some waves to it, simulating water to some degree, which we wanted to do. And so the next part I wanted to talk about is the kind of center section of our room, our home theater chairs. So yeah, these are black leather chairs. We got a great deal on them, so I might have chosen maybe a brown or something, but I think these are great. One of the key parts to this is, so our second row of seats is on what's called a riser to obviously be able to see the screen over the heads of the people in the front row. Now the riser I built myself. This is created out of just super cheap wood, but I distressed it, tried to make it look sort of like worn ship planks that you would see on the deck of a ship. With some are kind of newer, so they're not as worn. Some have big gashes out of them. I'm just trying to make it interesting. And I also applied a burning technique with a blowtorch to kind of also darken certain areas to kind of simulate all the stuff you might see on a ship that was going to happen over the years of sailing. So that was one of the key areas that I wanted to really, I didn't want to cover a carpet. I wanted to really make it so it's a visual point to kind of get that planking effect. I did a similar effect up here with the projector. This is also kind of made out of planks, which has a very special light that I built for it. And we're going to talk a whole episode about lighting. You see this giant light, this little fun light, and how important lighting is to home bars. Moving back to the more intimate section, like I said, we have a little extra bench seating. We've got our fireplace that's super nice. The curtains really add a lot. They match the curtains in the front for the screen. It's really important to keeping sunlight out when you're hanging out down here during the day and for movies as well. But it's really anchored by these two custom tikis. The one in the middle, the little guy, that's King Hemi. He probably won't go there long term, but that's where he is for now. But these really kind of serve as sort of a visual reminder of like a column to try to add height to our room. So our room is only 7 feet 1.5 inches from floor to finished ceiling. So anything I can do to add a little bit of that height and not make it feel so cramped is important. So having those vertical tikis is really critical to accomplishing that effect. Now let's kind of head over to the main bar. That's kind of the cool area here. We'll sit down for a second. Speaking of sitting down, so these chairs are actually from Rumba, which is a bar in Seattle that has tons of great rum selection. They're actually opening a tiki bar right next to it called Inside Passage very soon, like the next week or two or something. I'm not totally sure, but super soon. And so actually I picked these up. These are the original bar stools they opened with. So these are just about 10 years old, and they've got some wear on them, but for the shape they're in, it's just a testament to the build quality. Truly a commercial grade product that looks amazing. They're iconic for Rumba, and I'm super excited to have them in our bar. And so we have some more fun stuff with stools you'll see in another episode. But for a second, let's just take a seat. We'll hang out at the bar here and kind of talk a little bit about theme. So theme is super important to any home bar you're building, right? Or any space really, right? Whether it's you're just building a home theater or, I built both here. Theme is super, super important. So, and theme isn't just like the style, it's kind of like the feeling you're trying to evoke. So for the Quarterdeck Club, I kind of call it a slash fest, our theme. So my main concepts when I was trying to put this together and build it out were 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, the novel, as well as the Disney film, but probably more so the novel. Like I said, it's my favorite. And that's part of it. Another part is Swiss Family Robinson, both the 60s Disney movie as well as the actual Swiss Family Treehouse at Disneyland before they turned it into Tarzan, which should be turned back to Swiss Family Robinson, but that's just one man's opinion. So yeah, both that and the Treehouse and the movie. Tiki for sure. I didn't want to build a full-on tiki bar, but I wanted to have some of that influence. And then there's a big nautical portion, and specifically I think for me, kind of the inspiration was British ships of the line. So those are the old, multi-mast ships. Basically, like if you think, for the sailing ships you might see in like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, just for kind of a pop culture reference. Those are the kind of ships I was going for. There is one main ship of the line left called the HMS Victory, and it is in the UK, and it is a stunning example. They've done a really good job of keeping it up and kind of maintaining it, so people can still see what it's like. So tons of great photos on there about that. So to me, those were kind of the main influences in trying to evoke a feeling of what we're building here. Part of that was also working with what you have, right? So for our bar, the bar itself was already here when we bought our house and we moved in. And when I say the bar, so the main structure, right? So it's kind of the bar top, the columns, this top piece up here, and then the very top shelf was here. Everything else, anything else I added to it. But kind of thinking like when the person who built it, I think he kind of built it as sort of like a kind of pub style hangout, smoke cigars, drink some whiskey, that sort of thing. So I knew it was here, so how can I turn that into an advantage I have, right? So I kind of like the ornateness of the ships of the line and be able to kind of integrate that in. I think it fit well. I could kind of pivot to some of those other influences I was talking about. So yeah, I think theme is super important. So if you're whether you're building a full-on bar in your house, a home bar, or you're just having a little corner, a little shelf, is think about how does this fit into your home, right? That's super important. Whether you have a new house, old house, whatever, just how does it fit into what your home is? That's really how it's going to be a showpiece versus just something that feels like bolted on a corner or on a wall, it really kind of brings the cohesion. So for us, like these columns that hold up the kind of the bar structure, those are actually, as I was told, the original 1906 porch columns from this house. So kind of bringing that into it. Anywhere I could do that and I could bring architectural details to tie it into a larger space of the house, I did, to, like I said, not keep it from feeling like a bolt-on, to really feel like it's an integral part of the construction of your house. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the bar itself. It's a really cool space. It seats 3. I could have sat, I could have sat 4 here, 4 bar stools in the front, but part of it's taken up by a speaker for the home theater, so we've all got to make compromises. So that was one of mine. So we have 3 seats at the bar. The bar top itself is actually made out of, this is from a pool table, so it's slate, that they repurposed for this, and the columns are actually set into the pockets of the pool table. But slate, I have discovered, is not a great bar top material. It actually etches really easily when it comes into contact with acid. And so obviously we are dealing with a lot of acid when we're making cocktails with lemon, lime juice, citrus of all kinds. And so it's not my first choice, as I have discovered. But I found a company out of Florida called Catalina Chemical, and they make some products that will protect it. And they have a lot of great stone sealant products out there. Highly recommend working with them. Super great company. But they've helped me find a product that can seal this and kind of can arrest some of the etching, but if you're not careful, it just happens. So it's kind of it's a tough material to work with. The bar itself is mostly construction of maple wood. It's been stained. And so I said, like the existing part was here. The back bar I added myself. So that I actually was planning on having a much more extensive back bar in terms of depth, so I could have more bottles there. As you can see, I have 1 row of bottles, and that is because that wall is a 7-inch concrete wall that I wasn't about to put a giant hole in. So I kind of said, well, I've got to work with this somehow. Luckily, I was able to fit a small shelf that are 1 bottle deep. So it gives me about 50 bottles, not quite, we'll say 40 bottles or so, to kind of store stuff. So it's a great background. So directly to the concrete, I used rubber cement, and I actually put the back tropical matting directly on the concrete to try to keep as much space as I could. And so that worked out really well. Super happy with that. Now the porthole, we're going to do an entire episode just on the porthole itself, and but that was existing there. It was a hole in the concrete. I think it was an old HVAC duct, and so I kind of had to do something with it. I mean, I could have easily just covered it up and done nothing with it. It would have been super easy, but I kind of thought, like, how can I make this to my advantage and build it into something really cool? So luckily I had the idea of a porthole, and so kind of snowballed from there as to what it became. But I'll definitely be showing you all the features of the porthole, how I built it, going into very depth about it. So the bar itself, I've got inlay with lighting. We're going to do a special episode on lighting, because lighting and sounds of a home bar are super, super important, especially if you're building one that's kind of like a dedicated space. Very important to just being able to create what you want to create. So yeah, let me talk a little bit about the window here, because the window is super cool. So this window is actually an original window from 1906 from our home that was replaced, but they kept the window, so which is super, super smart. If you do any renovations and your house is old at all, I highly recommend keeping everything. 1, from a historical perspective, is really important, and then 2, you never know and you can use it again. So for this one, I repurposed the window. I hung it in the space. It fit perfectly. And kind of to go on some of the theme of nautical, my friend tied some really cool knots into the support system for this window. And it just really adds a lot of detail and because sailors, I guess, would actually tie kind of decorative knotting. If they're sitting there bored on a ship sailing for days, they'd sit there and do knots and just do stuff to keep their mind busy. So they do decorative knotting. And so I think that just adds one of those little details. It's just super cool, and I love it. And so let's take a look behind the bar. So I don't really show behind the bar very much, but let's, this is behind the scenes look, so you're going to see everything. So behind the bar, I talked about the bar top. Right underneath that, we've got something that is kind of like a shelf system that we can put mostly glassware in. I have a really cool system where I have 3 plastic bins. So one holds kind of knickknacks for various garnishes, that sort of thing, whatever. One is basically for spent citrus, any other kind of like organic garnish type thing. And then one is just for trash. So I'll have a dedicated trash can. Additionally to that, I have a freezer fridge little unit, and it was actually pretty hard to find one that fit this space like I wanted to, but if you can work a fridge and freezer into your home bar, it's super, super handy, and I highly recommend it. It's awesome. Next to that, I've got some additional just kind of cabinets, shelves I had to build. For some reason, he built these nice cabinets, but didn't put any shelves in there, so I had to build shelves to provide more storage. But I've got a couple of those. And of course, we have a sink, which is amazing. If you can have a sink and you can work it into your design, I highly recommend it. It is just a beautiful thing. And don't feel limited by some of the stuff you might encounter, right? For instance, we're in the basement here. There's no drains in this basement. So like the bottom, the slab is like where this house ends. So there's no drains going out. So for this sink, it actually gets, it drains into a pump, and then the pump actually pumps it up and back into like our drainage system out to the sewer. So there are ways around doing plumbing in basements that can get creative. So I recommend having a good plumber you can talk through your problems with and trying to figure out how you might solve that if you're doing stuff in a basement. The other cool part about this bar is it's wired, it's for electricity. So I've got a couple outlets, which is great for if you're working on your laptop and you want to just plug in and get power, it's super handy. Or if I'm doing any blended drinks, it's really great for that. Or if you're doing hot drinks, boiling water, it's great to have electricity in your bar. So that's kind of a overview of the Quarterdeck Club itself, the space. You've seen some of our camera equipment. I kind of want to just put it out there. Obviously, I'm not using it for this particular video, but I wanted to just have it there so you might see it. You can kind of see how we do things. I kind of give you that behind the scenes look, or maybe I should say behind the curtain, since we have a very large curtain in here. But I'm super happy with how this turned out. We love spending time down here, and it's just one of those things that's been fun. Like there was moments where you're just in the throes of like, how is this ever going to come together? I was there multiple times just trying to figure it out and be like, okay, well, what do I do next? The room's a mess. I was like you run into one problem, you solve it, you run into another problem, and another problem, and another problem, and just solving problems. But yeah, I think it's turned out really well. And of course, we're not done. I've got some ideas and everything else. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, if you have ideas for us too, like you're like, hey, that'd be really sweet, let us know, because I think I like collaborating. I don't have every idea. Other people have really great ideas. Or if there's any questions you want answered specifically about our home bar, let us know, because I want to make sure I answer them in our next couple of videos we do. But that's it for kind of the main tour. But now that you've got oriented with the space, I think as we go into some details, I think it'll really help you to understand what we've built and how we've kind of constructed the Quarterdeck Club. And I want to say thank you to my friend Jason Alexander of Devil's Reef. He actually loaned me the name Quarterdeck Club because a few years ago he'd kind of thrown out there as a possible thing he might use for something. He didn't actually use it, so I kind of said, hey, can I use it? Because I think it's an awesome name, and he said yes. So thanks to Jason for kind of giving us an awesome name for our space. And we're going to be back. So like I said, we're going to focus on some lighting, sound design. I'm going to go into depth about the porthole. And so I'm really excited to just kind of share more secrets of the Quarterdeck Club. But thanks for watching Better Cocktails at Home, and we're going to see you next time.